Be your own best friend in mind. Now, the premise of this conversation, I wrote this note here, so I want to read it, and I want to discuss this further because I believe at every moment we have an opportunity to build a deeper relationship with ourselves. Now, why would a person want to do this? I believe the quality and the degree of relationship we have with ourselves expresses itself as how we relate to others in a wide array of contexts, friendships, relationships, and so forth. Now, I've seen this on myself, and I've seen this with others on this journey. And I realize that we're all doing this together. Recognize that harmonious relationships or a greater degree of harmony with others, it is reflective and correspondent to the degree of harmony, or we could say completion, within ourselves. We talked about this on Sunday's video. I'm going to build upon this further. And we also touched upon it in Tuesday's video when it comes to finding inspiration. So let's continue this inward journey into mind and building a relationship in mind with ourselves. So one of the things I mentioned in Tuesday's video is I engage in internal dialogues, conversations, consciously with myself. I ask myself certain questions. I encourage certain thought processes that I believe are true for me in relation to my journey, in relation to myself, and how I want my life to be. And upon encouraging these thought processes, we recognize that we recreate reality from the internal mirror of how we see ourselves, how we experience ourselves to be in our dialogue, internal dialogue. So when it comes to relationships, and I've worked on this in regards to all kinds of relationships, I realize that the core of it all is the relationship we have with ourselves. Because if a person feels a certain way towards themselves, let's say they feel complete. I like the word complete. Or as I discussed in Sunday's video, I belong. In their mind, in their internal world, they belong. They feel complete. Then they are achieving higher levels of realization, which expresses itself in, we could say, a higher degree of self-actualization, representative in the relationships, harmonious relationships with friends, business partners, everyone. And the core is completion. So as we continue this pathway of building this relationship with ourselves, it's important to look at this one word, completion. And I wrote this here. Let's read it. Observe where we go looking for completion. The source of completion, the everlasting source of completion, is found within. Now, when a person has completion within, and we'll discuss this further, what this means and how we can make this happen, they allow themselves to be how they really want to be. As mentioned in Tuesday's video, there's a number of questions that I enjoy asking myself that further reveal how I truly want to be. One of the things that I do with others is inspire them to also find this within themselves. Our goal is to find it within ourselves, and if we want to, we can help others also find it within themselves, how they really want to be. And they know the answer. Perhaps it may be buried under what we call programming, ways of thinking, belief systems, ideologies, that may have been helpful to them or not. But regardless of that, beyond that is the true meaning, the true interpretations found within. Now, when a person develops this completion, they give themselves true permission. See, we could look around to see what everyone is doing or what others are doing before we decide to be who we really want to be. Or we can ask ourselves, how do we really want to be, and allow ourselves to be there, true permission. And that is based on completion within. When a person is complete within, or we could take it a step further, realize that they're already complete within. And that's a large part of this personal development, self-realization journey, is recognizing that that's the way it really is, that the outer world is an expression of what is within. And if we see ourselves, and I mean at a knowing level, recognize that we are complete within, we will see it expressed in how we relate to others. So we are, I wrote here, the masters of our destiny and what is expressed in our lives. And the source of it is ourselves. As we were saying, what we identify with, what we say I am too. And we want that to be complete. So recognize that from the completion center, we'll talk about how to do this further. We have preferences. And one of the things I also mentioned in Tuesday's video, when you discover what you truly love, you automatically commit to it. Because you don't have the doubts, indecision, or thinking patterns that cloud based on interpretation within. It's all thinking patterns and perspectives existing only in the mind. Beyond the heaviness of perhaps our reactivity to those thinking patterns, there is what we call faith, or knowing that that's the way that it actually is. Or sometimes I say this, what you want wants you back. What you love is yours. Now one has to go on the journey of realizing this, because the way to realize this is to actually allow yourself to make peace with the thinking patterns within yourself. In alchemy, we call this purification of the mind. We go on a journey in mind, and we find these thinking patterns which play out as theater in the mind, imaginary scenes and so forth. For me, it's internal dialogue, and we make peace with them. And we discover we have way more options, and we find ourselves committing to, or automatically committing to, that which we truly love. So we are actually then thus guided from within to deeply understand relationships, and everything spawns from there. And so one of the things that I would like to encourage, as it has been very beneficial for me, and I've seen it being beneficial for others that I've worked with, is to become your own best friend. To enjoy being with yourself. To enjoy learning about yourself. To enjoy honoring who you really are and allowing it to express in your creative expression, in your innovation, or whatever way that you know is ideal for you. This is another way of saying what we learned from the Corpus Hermeticum, so I want to bring this up. We were bestowed two gifts, speech and mind. And it was said that these two gifts were equal to immortality. And it states, if one uses these for what he ought, he'll differ not a whit from the immortals. Nay, rather, on departing from the body, he will be guided by the twain unto the choir of gods and blessed ones. So we travel in mind via our inner speech. We actually travel in mind, in our inner dialogue, in our conversation. Reflect upon this. If I share with you a story, a lot of times you will picture in your mind's eye the theatrical representation of that story. If you read a book, you have a conversation with someone, you take those words and you translate them into imaginal scenes. And to the degree that you have a conviction that that's the way it really is, we know that that is what we're identifying with upon the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is what is expressing. And we know from dreams and some of the conversations we've been having that the subconscious mind both reveals as well as it also expresses, reveals in our imagination based on our interpretation, and also expresses as the five sensory experience, reality, how we relate to others, and so forth. This is the conscious use of the two gifts, speech and mind. We can fill up our mind with anything. And by being our own best friend, we can engage in internal dialogues with ourselves in a way that allows us to use the two gifts to create a life the way we truly want it to be. And it is stated here, if one uses these for what he ought, he'll differ not a whit from the immortals. Now, how much in our lives have we identified with thinking patterns that may not be true for us, and we continue to live that way, experiencing disconnect, inharmonious relationships, and other areas of our life that we would call disharmony because of thinking patterns we unconsciously say I am too within in our own mind, because we believe, or we could say we forced ourselves to believe those to be true. And through the repetition of saying it to ourselves via our own inner dialogue that those thinking patterns, which aren't resonant to us, are true, it plays out in theater, creating more frustration and experiences in our life that we don't desire. In Psalm 119, 105, it says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. It shows me the way wherein I should go, both night and day." Find the accurate meaning, the interpretation, the truth within, and allow that to create the life that you want, which is really based on how you truly want to be. And so James Allen actually brought it up, and he was referencing the Buddha, where he said, "Said a great teacher to his disciples, those who shall be a lamp unto themselves, relying upon themselves only, and not relying upon any external help, but holding fast to the truth as their lamp, and seeking their salvation in the truth alone, shall not look for assistance to any besides themselves. It is they among my disciples who shall reach the very topmost height. But they must be willing to learn." Now you can find this teacher that is within you. Throughout history, many have given different interpretations, names, to different attributes or experiences in their inner world spawned by thinking patterns, words, what they were conjuring up. And some might even have suggested to other people that this is the way that it is. But I would like us to look beyond that, and I would like you to find your way. Be a lamp unto yourself by being a best friend with yourself. I travel the world within with myself. I meet with him. I have conversations with him. And together, I am safe in mind because he guides me. He sees things that I don't see. And when I listen to him, when I take his information and I apply it, it proves itself in equation in my life. This was true on my entrepreneurial journey in many areas of my life. I found confusion. I said, I'm looking around and other people say, this is how you got to do it. This is how you got to do your marketing. This is how you got to do your sales. But for some reason, it just doesn't resonate with me. This is how relationships should be. This is how I should live my life. But for some reason, from all the experiences and what others are doing, I'm finding that there's some similarity, some attributes that I like, but there's some attributes that I don't resonate with. What is going on? And so I find it within myself via an inner dialogue upon building a relationship. Well, perhaps it's a variation of that, he says. Or perhaps it's this way, and a way is revealed, and it's distinct. And I might question it, and I believe this is part of the relationship building process, and say, well, I don't know if that will actually work. And so he says, try it, see what happens. So I go and do it. And I find my own distinct way of doing things. I actually experience it here in this five sensory world, a reflection of what I truly believe to be my way discovered with this relationship that I have with myself, which was distinct on how people do things. Now, this is not something that I believe is isolated just for me. I believe we all have these experiences. We can also call this listening to your heart and intuition. One of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes from his commencement speech: follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you want to become. And actually, even in The Alchemist, the book by Paulo Coelho, he says something like, and I'm paraphrasing, the boy and his heart became friends, and neither were capable of betraying each other, or something like that. So we can find the true and accurate meaning from within. Artists, and I believe we are all artists, but those that actually encourage their artistic side know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Innovators, watch the video I did on Nikola Tesla. He would go into his imagination and he would construct the invention. He would actually treat the imagination as his workshop. He would imagine himself in there and he would build it down to exact specifications in his imagination. And when it was actually created, the invention worked exactly like how he imagined it to work. So we can do this with relationships by building that core relationship with ourselves. Because one of the things that I had found is as I continued to build this relationship, I had distinct criteria for, or you could say, revealed my distinct criteria for what I look for when it comes to relationships. And I'm talking relationships in personal, business, etc. Because I did not recognize that the completion was within, and that everything that I'm ever looking for, I can be satisfied within, having it within, in my own mind, I would somehow play out that theater of looking for it with others. And it seemed to have played out in some unnecessary, complex, and convoluted way, which led to frustration, stress, and so forth, and in earlier stages, blaming the other person. When I realized that all is a theater of what's going on within, my own interpretations, my own internal dialogue, the conscious, or we could say unconscious, both precisely in the direction that I desire, or unconsciously based on certain programming, use of the two gifts of speech and mind, I wasn't really listening to my internal voice and finding that I already knew the way. And thus, I did not go for certain criteria that I truly wanted because I just didn't have the awareness on it. So what ended up happening then was I dedicated time, and I continue to dedicate time to building this relationship with myself to bring this forward. So let's relate this over to 6 ways here that I've put together that can help you, which I've worked with as well. Number 1, have a good laugh with yourself. I mean, really enjoy time with yourself. If you find that you enjoy your time with others and you always have a great time when you go out with others, and then when you're by yourself, you feel serious, tense, alone, recognize that that may be an indicator of not finding that completion within. And so thus be able to find the true criteria within and honor the true criteria. We want to find that completion within. Number 2, learn to enjoy time with yourself in the same way you would with a friend in relation to what I just mentioned. So for me, I started traveling by myself, and I would do things normally that I would do with other people. And it became normal after a while, but in the earlier stages, I found it was uncomfortable. I would look around and I'd say, oh, people are looking at me because I'm by myself. And thus the theater would play out of my own interpretations that when anybody would look at me, I would interpret it as, oh, they're staring at me and thinking I'm weird because I'm by myself in this environment where a lot of people are with other people. Now, I recognize that those were only thinking patterns in which I did the subconscious mind work of self-talk, autosuggestion, and so forth to release from those thinking patterns. And then I actually found myself being so comfortable in those kinds of situations where I don't see it at all, where other people are looking at me and thinking these things. Never. I just show up. I have a great time. Sometimes I want to be around people. Sometimes I want to be by myself. Now, the result of that is that I found it was easier to go within myself and seek counsel, ask questions to myself. What do I really want to do? Because, I found that when I wasn't doing that, asking myself, what do I really want? What do I really want to do? How do I really want to live? I would just, you could say internally, based on certain programming, believe that I couldn't have what I want or not even discover what it is that I want. And I would just force myself to do things that other people wanted to do. And I didn't really want to be there. So I'd feel tense. My energy was off. And in a way, I kind of resented the people. And I'm realizing that these are all signs of my own, or at that time, my own interpretation as far as completion goes. I was interpreting myself to be incomplete within, and thus was playing out that theater. Number 3, invest time talking about and encouraging your natural personality traits. So there's certain things about us, if we don't feel complete within ourselves, that we do not accept about ourselves. It could be the way we communicate, the kind of things that we're interested in, and we don't seem to encourage it as far as conversation or expression of it, allowing ourselves to be, such as doing the business that you really want to do or taking up the hobbies that you really want to do, because we're thinking other people might say some kind of negative thing or whatever, which is our own interpretation. And as a result, we might not allow ourselves to do those things. One of the things that I developed was this relationship with myself to actually engage in dialogues with myself, like you would with a friend, because you are your own best friend. And then from there, what ends up happening is you actually discover these things that you truly want to do. These inherent personality traits or aspects within yourself that you really want to encourage and express, whatever they may be. Now you'll find this truth within. So let's go back to the quote here. Those who shall be a lamp unto themselves, relying upon themselves only, and not relying upon any external help, but holding fast to the truth as their lamp, and seeking their salvation in the truth alone, shall not look for assistance to any besides themselves. It is they amongst my disciples who shall reach the very topmost height, but they must be willing to learn, so we find it within. We can also benefit from being around those and being inspired, allowing the inspiration to be there by those who have also advanced further along this inward path. See, the outer world is an expression of the degree that we travel in the inward path. Number 4, accept and understand the unconscious programming. So we recognize that the only person that is preventing us from being how we really want to be is ourselves. And to really split hairs here, I'm talking about we don't actually prevent ourselves. We allow certain thinking patterns in which we fall asleep to or unconscious to dictate our lives, and we go in autopilot. If a person starts to have a dialogue with themselves and they find something that they truly desire, and they might not recognize that the cave they fear to enter holds the treasure that they seek, they may identify with certain thinking patterns in relation to what they desire to see. For example, a person wants to start the business. They genuinely want to do this. They have built enough of a relationship with themselves that they realize that this is what they truly want to do. They want to have a certain relationship. They want to live in a certain country, whatever. They realize that this is what they truly want to do. But as they start to encourage it, and maybe they feel excited about it for a moment, all of a sudden they may go into that beta frequency excessively, not maintaining the alpha as we talked about in Tuesday's video, and they might start overthinking and overanalyzing and coming up with thousands of ways in their own internal dialogue, identifying with unconscious programming, and thus they don't end up doing it because they allow that programming to dictate how they're going to be. However, if we say, okay, we have a heightened degree of awareness to be able to look at that and say, I am transcendent to that programming. That program does not have to be how I represent myself in my expression, my behaviors, my environments. It doesn't have to be that way. They can ask themselves then, what is it? How is it really for me? And then they find the thinking patterns within themselves. They engage in a dialogue. Perhaps they might have a conversation with themselves. But again, this is a lot easier as we accept that you really can be our best friend, our own best friend. Perhaps many of us have grown up where it was taught that it was silly to be your own best friend. Like, for example, I had these experiences where I would go out, where people would be hanging out with other people, and I'm thinking to myself in those earlier stages, I'm some kind of loser here because I'm here by myself. And I realized that, you know what? This is something that is causing me to be a little reactive, but however, the cave I fear to enter holds the treasure that I seek. And thus, if I make peace with this, then I will be comfortable wherever I go. And you know what I notice? Is that everybody accepts me in those environments. As a matter of fact, I notice that my relationships have grown as a result of that because I don't put off that needy, desperate energy that if people leave, I'm going to get upset. If they want to go, they can go. If I want to go, I'll go. If I want to stay, I'll stay. If they want to stay, they stay. Genuinely. Anyone that I ever deal with, I genuinely want them to be there because they want to be there. And I feel the same way about myself. Anywhere I go, it's because I genuinely want to be there. I say the same thing when it comes to making these videos. I genuinely want to make these videos. I don't force myself to make these videos. Because whatever a person truly desires to do, what they truly love, they will allow themselves to be there and they will do it over and over again, such as hobbies, creative expressions, being around certain environments and so forth. Whatever it is, when a person goes down this, and I trust, and we're going to have more of these kinds of conversations, but I trust that this is forming even more connections, because here's the thing about it. We already know this, and I would like to encourage this more so because of what I found, and working with others, this is what they found as well. Their relationships improve tremendously because they have improved, we could say, or realized to a higher degree this deeper relationship with their internal world. And they travel the internal world with themselves. I do this. I actually imagine myself exploring the infinite world of imagination with myself as a best friend, having dialogues with myself as we encounter certain belief systems, interpretations, perspectives that play themselves out as imaginal scenes, characters, and so forth, and we understand it together. And all of this is making peace. All of this is changing, we could say, or becoming more of how we truly are as a result of the inward peace of this internal journey. Now, when I say accept and understand the programming, I don't mean leave the identification with the programming that is so that we constantly react to the programming. Accept that this is the programming that we are identifying with. That part. I accept that I have been identifying with certain unconscious programming. Now I'm going to understand what this programming does when I identify with. How does it translate into how I relate with others, environments, myself, behaviors? What is the true and accurate programming? You can find this in the conversations that you have with yourself. Now, if you find this challenging, as mentioned, have conversations with others about what's being discussed here. who you found have an excellent relationship with themselves. I've met others in my life who I saw them as their own best friends, and they wouldn't necessarily say, I am my own best friend, but I knew that they were, and I wanted to know how they think. So what I would find is that when I would bring certain challenges that were a result of incompletion-based thinking within myself to them, they would help me understand it in a way that was actually resonant. They wouldn't give me some further Band-Aid-based incomplete way of thinking in which it just further confirmed the unconscious programming and thus didn't really allow me to make peace with it. Number 5, praise yourself first rather than looking for others to do it first. And we could do this all day long. You had a great conversation with someone, client conversation. After the conversation, say to yourself, you did a great job. This is the best conversation you've ever had. This is a representation of your evolution. Look at this. You have grown. When you finish a workout, say, another workout, and that one was the best workout ever, and tomorrow's is going to be even better because we just keep getting better every day, something like that. Now, you say this to yourself internally, in your own mind. And as you continue to do this, you'll notice you won't need other people to say these things to you. It's nice if other people say it to you. And I believe it's part of a healthy relationship to share praise and congratulate each other. And the key here is really being a lamp unto yourself and finding it more within yourself. That is what will allow you to discover and commit to what you truly want, the accurate and true resonant thinking patterns and beliefs from yourself within. Allow this world to be an expression of how you really want to be. I look at beliefs, perspectives, ideas, interpretations that is true and resonant as the way I shape, paint, sculpt reality. So I want this reflected internally in my own mirror with myself, further encouraging it in my internal mirror. That will allow me to look beyond if this world-based reflection, outer world-based reflection, is encouraging what I truly want or not. What I'm looking for, and what I encourage others to look for as well, to feel that completion within, to live how they truly want to live, is the internal knowledge and wisdom that is found by traveling the internal path. And we do this by, we can say, creating our own sounding board or our own best friend in our imagination, which is ourselves. And through this internal dialogue with ourselves, they represent us in our imagination as our mirror. And all of that impresses upon the subconscious mind. And through this creative way of building a relationship with yourself and being your own best friend in your own mind, you allow what you identify with that you feel safe with in mind, in your own internal mirror of yourself in mind, to express itself as the behaviors and how you relate to others and environment and information and everything. We start to go into more of a higher degree of internal locus of control. And this brings us back into number 6. We want to recognize and have conversations with ourselves that we are complete and that you do belong. As mentioned in Sunday's video, you belong. You are safe in mind, you belong in mind, you're complete in mind, and thus you can express onto this world that which is truly resonant that you find within yourself, being a lamp unto yourself and allowing yourself to express, knowing in relation to Psalm 119, 105, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It shows me the way wherein I should go, both night and day. Within yourself, you can find the answers. And to facilitate that, and we're going to discuss this more so in the upcoming videos, we want to encourage being our own best friend. And we can have many conversations in regards to this topic. It's something that I'm deeply fascinated by and extremely transformative. To look at your internal world and the relationship that you have with yourself as the internal compass and guide as to how you truly want to be. Because the completion is found within, and we source the ideas, hunches, inspirations, truths, interpretations from within. If you look at this world here, we see all the innovation, all the ideas, all the different ways of looking at reality. It was all sourced from individuals within themselves. You also can source what is true, harmonious, and resonant with you and allow that to express as your great work, your artistic expression, which is your life. I look at life as an artistic expression. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. We shall be further discussing this in the upcoming videos. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. We can say, I recognize that I am a lamp unto myself as I continue to build a relationship with myself, revealing that I always was and continue to be my own best friend. Through the process, I'm able to find the truth within and hold fast to the truth as I allow that to creatively express, artistically express, to light my path and express it in my innovation, artistic expression, wherever I go, both night and day. Through this process, I rise up to higher levels of understanding and wisdom within myself. I notice that others also show up so that I am an inspiration to them for also finding this within themselves. Through the process, I build meaningful relationships because the meaningful relationship is sourced from my completion within. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.